understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
Tried to drink it away. I tried to put one in the air. I tried to dance it away. I tried to change it with my hair. I ran my credit card below. Thought a new dress would make it better. Tried to work it away, but that just made me even sadder. I tried to keep myself busy. I ran around in circles, think I made myself dizzy. I slept it away, I sexed it away, I read it away. I don't wanna feel those metal eyes. Yeah, it's like grains in the sky.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Sometimes I don't wanna feel those metal eyes.
Happy to welcome into the space a person who's taught in academia for the past 22 years, currently the Assistant Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and the Chair of the Board of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Drexel University College of Nursing and Health Professions. She's also Associate Clinical Professor within the Behavioral Health Counseling Department and Chair of the Academy for Psychiatric Rehabilitation Association. And she's an author, among other things. The book is called Frame Your Degree. Dr. Veronica Carey, welcome.
Well, good morning, Dominique. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the KBLA 1580 team for having me as well.
Absolutely. It's that season, I guess, back to school, right? Whether you got a little kid or you are a college student or the parent of a college student, it's back to school. It's also apply for school season for many high school young folks. And so tell me why this idea of, how to get a degree, which is really how to get a degree painlessly, was important to you. I mean, you obviously you're in academia, but you already got yours.
Right. Exactly. But you know what, Dominique? This is why I wrote the book. It's funny because one of my in-laws, my sister-in-law, reminded me this morning. So shout out to Joanne. She said, you're increasing and raising awareness. And that was one of the most important parts about this, because we have these tuition-paying individuals that we call students. And these students are enduring cycles of pain in order to hang that diploma behind their head. And how do I know that? Because in my role as Assistant Dean for DEI, as well as in my chosen field for study and education, being in behavioral health, I see it literally every day. Whether they're coming to me on a diversity matter or whether they're coming to me on a subject matter, they're not knowing how to navigate these different things. So the book is out there, Dominique, to support the fact that no student should be in pain to get a degree. And I love the fact that you said earlier in your broadcast that you tend to go off on tangents, and I'm sure that both of us are going to be going off on tangents for the next hour. But it's just so critical that we understand that. And in terms of first things first, all rising seniors, all rising juniors, all first-year students should have this book. Because I also like your tagline and your premise and mission of your talk radio show is that we do have the ability to change the world. We really do. And if we can talk to these students and prepare them for what's coming, we can change the culture and climate of colleges and universities.
And when you say change the culture and climate, I mean, you're inside academia, have been for quite some time. What are some of the changes you envision that would be constructive?
Exactly. So what is happening is that students will what I call endure. And what I mean by that is they will shoulder what is happening to them on a daily basis and probably won't even express it to even the persons who think they know them the best. And then I call those academic bricks on shoulders. After a while, Dominique, those bricks will weigh on them. Of course, no pun intended, right? They will weigh on them. And I will see sadness and anxiety. We'll see depression. We'll see, students wanting to have a leave of absence, maybe even quitting school. We'll see retaliation efforts, after all of that bullying or those different types of pain events that turn into things like mass shootings of schools and synagogues and churches. And those are the things that come out of outcomes of persons who are 16 to 24 years old that don't know what to do with what's occurring to them. Think about this. We are raised with our parental entities or whoever are our caregivers up until about 16. That's about the year that we get our driver's licenses. Then we get 2 years to get it right towards graduation. Those are the first 2 years that you have that autonomy. But we really weren't taught how to be autonomous. We were always taught to, depending upon your culture, to defer to your elders or listen to your parents or don't talk back to your teachers. So you don't really learn how to navigate spaces that cause you pain. And in the book, I articulate what I call the top 10 academic bullying pain points. It's not a pain point that you have an IEP, which is an educational, an individual education plan or an accommodation in college. It's how you're made to feel because you have that. It's not a pain point that you're a first-generation student. I was, and my siblings were. It's how people might make you feel because you're first generation. So I came up with theories and strategies in this book to help students to understand that these top 10 events do occur, but the book helps them to mitigate them. I can't make the claim that you're going to have a painless journey. I wish I could. But, if a junior and a senior in high school can begin to think about it and get what one of my strategies is called the first 5 words. Just get something out of your mouth. It may be 4 words, it may be 10 words. But historically, you never thought about having to do that. You would just endure it quite possibly. So these are all the different formulas and practices that go into the reason why I say this book should be in the hands of each one of these students across the country. Mm-hmm. And if we can examine that, Dominique, then we have the ability to change that culture and climate. Because everyone will be using their first 5 words. Everyone will know what the top 10 list is. If you bear with me, I'll quickly articulate what
Hold that thought.
We'll
do that when we come forward. I want to get to your top 10, but I also want to, we're talking about equipping students, and also what is the institution's responsibility in all of this. It's KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
Are you looking for a tax preparation firm that understands the unique financial challenges of African American business owners? Then look no more. Wealth Management Financial Advisors can prepare and file your individual and business taxes. They're committed to providing their clients with the best possible service. See how they make the greatest impact on your taxes. Find them at wealthmanagementlb.com or call them at 562-427-8877. That's 562-427-8877.
Wake up, people. You are optimizing every waking hour of your life. From carpooling kids, to work, to friends, and everything in between. You have to get sleep, and a bed that can perform as well as you do. Meet the next generation Sleep Number Smart Bed. It effortlessly adjusts to your shape, position, and movements, learning how you sleep, so you learn to sleep better, night after night. Sleep next level, only from Sleep Number.
Don't miss our Labor Day special. Save 50% on the Sleep Number Limited Edition Smart Bed, plus free delivery when you add a base. Ends Labor Day.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
21 days of beauty. 21 days with daily beauty steals of up to 50% off. 21 days of slay. 21 days of yay. 21 days of are you kidding me right now? Beauty's biggest event is on now till September 16th at Ulta Beauty. Discover irresistible deals on must-have brands like IT Cosmetics and Fenty Beauty by Rihanna. Plus, new launches from Pat McGrath Labs. Shop in store, online, or pick up today. Ulta Beauty. The possibilities are beautiful. Conditions apply.
If this were a Reese's TV ad, you'd be staring at a Reese's peanut butter cup. And sure, my voice is peanut buttery smooth, but still, you need to see the peanut butter cups, right? No? I can really just say Reese's and you'll go get some? Okay. Reese's. 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 Really working, actually. Reese's. Reese's. I'm on to something. Reese's. Reese's. Reese's.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DePrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Talking with Dr. Veronica Carey. Frame Your Degree is her book. And right before, we went to break, you were talking about your kind of basic concepts here about people having these academic bricks that they have to deal with, their burdens, whatever those might be, getting something out of your mouth. In other words, talking about it, dealing with what's going on rather than just soldiering on. And you were about to go into these 10 suggestions that you have.
Exactly. And you had also asked me to respond in terms of what is the institutional responsibility. And there are probably 4 basic responsibilities that institutions have, whether they be high school or whether they be college and university, Dominique. One of them is the opportunity to have affinity groups on campus. Affinity groups are, by definition, predicated on individuals who share whatever the demographic is about the affinity group. So, for example, it might be a Black or African American affinity group, or it may be an LGBTQIA plus affinity group, or it may be an international Nigerian affinity group, or international Asian, etc. So having affinity groups on campus, everyone likes to feel a part of something larger than themselves. So the opportunity to be seen on campus and also to be heard on campus helps when you have affinity groups. The second thing that institutions need to be able to do is continue to have student counseling. Now, every university has student counseling services, but for some reason, students still aren't utilizing it. So perhaps a part of what the Frame Your Degree book generates or directs them towards will help them to figure out maybe there should be some opportunities where we reduce the stigma of using the student counseling services. Maybe they're more online so students aren't afraid to be seen walking into that space, et cetera. So
maybe they need to get credit for it, so they have to go. I mean,
That's an excellent point. That's a very good point.
why not make it a one-unit
credit.
class? Yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
yeah, and honestly, it's not as accessible in high school as it should be.
Terrific. That's exactly correct. Because I think, again, there's still the reason why that is, and that's a great point to bring up, is because they're still under the quote unquote management of their caregivers. So the assumption is that if they need services, that their parents or parental entities should be providing it.
Which is a ridiculous assumption especially in a place like LA, where you have a huge number of kids in foster care, a huge number of kids in public schools that are unhoused. And so to have any kind of educational model that assumes children have resources in those conditions means your business model doesn't fit your clientele.
Exactly. And that's what I mean by the pain threshold. But yet students are asked to continue to matriculate, to continue to go to class, having to walk into class and you haven't changed your clothes in a couple of days because you don't have any other resources to wear, or you have food insecurities. And yet you're trying to operate on less calories than anybody else sitting there, so you might be in physical pain because of that. All of these different parameters will impact the educational day of that particular student across, however many students that it happens to impact. No student likes the grade of E, but there are 4 E's that I identify that students look at, Dominique. One of them in terms of the expectations. That's the first E. Where do those expectations come from? They come from whoever they've been raised by. You should be listening, you should be attending, you should get higher grades. So students walk into spaces with prescriptive expectations based upon whoever raised them. Then they have evaluation. So as the student grows and mentally grows, physically grows, they begin to look side to side. And then they compare themselves to other students. Oh, that person's taller, shorter, happier, better in sports than I am, better in math than I am. That comes with age. So here's a student bringing in the two fundamental, if you will, E's, expectation, evaluation. Then we get into education. So now we're talking about the climate, the community. We always say that colleges and universities are microcosms of the world. If you really want to know what's happening around the world, go sit on a campus for a couple of hours, for a couple of days. You won't miss anything. And then the last E is endurance. And that's the E that I speak about mostly in this book. We have to learn how to mitigate what the other 3 E's have created in order for these students to be, they're tuition-paying people, and yet we haven't been able to figure this out yet.
I mean, I feel like, as a parent of a teenager and just a parent in general, these kinds of lists and, formulas and such are so prevalent. It's like, and our ideas about what's going to make our children successful are so ever-changing and trend influenced, Oh, it's resilience. It's grit. Everybody's like grit, 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 grit. Oh, it's possibility thinking, possibility, possibility. Oh, now it's, a learning mentality as opposed to a fixed mentality, and it's like, I get that we have to continue to search for answers, but somehow I think that we miss the really basic stuff sometimes. What I mean by that is, like, right now, we know in theory that we're dealing with children who are impacted by their terrible experience during the restrictions and everything that's happened around COVID. We know that. We know that kids were a lot of kids, especially high school kids now, kids going into college now, were basically robbed of most of their high school experience, robbed of their social emotionals, robbed of even the learning that they normally would get, the academic learning. And we've given it so much lip service. But as a parent navigating this space, what I see is hardly any really actual concrete actions being taken to counteract this.
Right.
Where are the packs of counselors on every high school campus? Where are the strategies for success in college, or successful even applying with these depressed grades and all kinds of weird stuff kids have on transcripts coming out of this hopefully once in a lifetime pandemic? I just don't see it. I see a lot of lip service and ever shifting trendy things that we're supposed to pay attention to as parents.
Right, right. You know what you're actually sharing here is that most of the professionals are educated to be providers. That means they want to figure it out for them. We're not really educated to be listeners. And that's where the problem lies, Dominique. You're going to have a discussion with your teens that may be different than the educator's conversation with the teens. And then the teen stands in the middle and says, neither one of you have really heard what I just said. What I said is, every time I go to class, somebody says, you mean nobody in your family has a college degree? That's impossible. That's what the student's trying to say and doesn't know how to formulate it, how to come and just say, that's what I endure every day. Oh, but that's only one of my intersections. My other intersection is that I happen to be an international student, or my other intersection is that so you're not looking at a single entity when you look at a student. They are multifaceted individuals that bring successes and failures to any situation that we call classrooms. So educators need to realize they're not just teaching students, they're teaching multiple intersections. And the sooner we realize that, the sooner we'll listen and look for what these students are bringing every single day. It's right in front of us. We have to stop trying to be providers, which you gave a great description of, and become better listeners.
I mean, it's also resources, though, because I can listen all day. But if there's not a counselor to really get to know my kid, really figure out what's going on with that child, really help them navigate what it takes to get from their under-equipped public school to a credible university, or even know what a credible university is, then, we can listen all day. I guess it'll probably help us psychologically, but where are the resources? I mean, that's part of the puzzle too, right?
Right. Exactly. That's a huge umbrella, right? The umbrella has to be, what is the orientation? And if you're saying, yeah, I can be a great listener, I appreciate that you guys have been, matriculated under being great providers and educated that way. But you're right. The umbrella has to look differently than it currently does, because we're losing students, and or we're putting them through a pathway that is uncomfortable for them because we didn't determine how to make it better for them. We just want to keep pushing them through the same funnel.
So what do you say to the no pain, no gain parents? Suck it up. When I was your age, we had to walk through the snow, blah, blah, blah. That kids today are too soft and too pampered, and who cares if it's comfortable?
And I don't think that everybody has that. I walk 2 miles in my slippers in the snow. Everybody's going to have their different variation of that. You're talking about students who are going to tell their grandchildren or their children, I lived through COVID era. I lived through a pandemic. Everyone's going to have that space. People should stop going back to what's familiar to them, because it's not familiar to current students. They cannot relate to those kinds of stories. They're just like, listen, all I know is that I cry myself to sleep at night. All I know is that I've started using substances. All I know is that I've stopped eating. All I know is that I have no friends. That's the reality of not being available and not seeking to mitigate this. The stories that are in this book, the stories that are in the Frame Your Degree book, did not have to be made up. Now, I changed that. You see in the beginning of the book, I say that I protect the innocent, so I changed, to whom it looks like it is respectful of. But I didn't have to make any of these up, Dominique, because they come into my office. And when they started to look like, wow, this is happening very, very frequently, and under these certain 10 parameters, I keep seeing the same stories or the same issues. The first thing students say to me is, I didn't know what to say. I recently filmed a TEDx talk, and the name of the TEDx is Pain, Pain, Go Away. And in there I said that oftentimes students don't know what to say, so of course the first 5 words make sense. So I sit there and I role play with them. Because how many times, Dominique, have you had an adult conversation where you get into your car and then you go, why didn't I say that? Or why did I say that? Or darn it, I had nothing. But when are you having the conversation? You're having it in the car in the absence of when it happened. This is what our students but they don't know how to do it, how to navigate it when they're 16, 17, 18. So that's what I mean by the bricks. They sit in
2022.
class.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So when
exactly.
we just got 2 minutes here till news, traffic, and sports, and we'll keep going on the other side. But when you say the first 5 words, what do you mean by that?
So literally, I take them through strategies to open their mouth up and think about what can they say to advocate for themselves, and if it doesn't apply to them, what could they say to advocate for others?
And why is it the first 5 words that are important?
Because otherwise you sit in the car or you walk away and you punish yourself for not addressing it. And now you're adding another layer. So somebody said to you, oh, I don't like those people. You look around and you're like, wait a minute, I think they're talking about me. I'm those people. You say absolutely nothing. The book says, if you think that this is a parameter that is one of your intersections, let's think ahead of time as to what those first 5 words, could be 4 words, could be 10 words, could possibly be. So if it happens in the future, you are forearmed to deal with it.
Right, you know how to start the conversation. Yeah, and you actually give some specific suggestions.
Correct.
Yeah. Right, how to deal with stuff without necessarily having to have a confrontation, but also not swallowing things to make yourself mentally ill or physically ill, or just as you say, passive aggressive, when things can just pop right back out.
And so you're not layering that brick on your shoulders, because, like I said, those scenarios in the book are not they're not fabricated. They literally came into my space.
We're talking with Dr. Veronica Carey. If you have a question or some pushback or some amen, we're good for all of that. 800-920-1580. 800-920-1580. How to get that college degree as painlessly as possible on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominic DePrima when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. A police report is being filed against African-American rapper 50 Cent after he allegedly threw a microphone into the crowd at his Los Angeles concert. TMZ reporting an LA radio host filed a report after she got hit in the head and suffered a cut Wednesday night. Well, more than 14 million people are expected to pass through the nation's airports this Labor Day weekend.
Labor Day weekend may just be kind of like a little 3-day getaway, if at all.
That's AAA's Andrew Gross there. The TSA is bracing for a high volume of travelers today through Wednesday, September 6th. Today is projected to be the busiest travel day, with nearly 3 million people passing through security checkpoints. TSA Administrator David Pekoski says travelers should arrive to airports early. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Right now, during Labor Day savings at Lowe's, get up to $1,500 off select major kitchen appliances. Lowe's knows home improvement. $2.96. Savings vary based on purchase amount. Exclusions apply. See Lowe's.com for details.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man. The best 2 teams in baseball squared off last night at Dodger Stadium. The Dodgers came up 1 run short to the Atlanta Braves and missed out on a franchise milestone. The Dodgers were trying to win 25 games in a month for the first time since the team moved to LA from Brooklyn in 1958. The Dodgers finished the month 24-5. Mookie Betts had 51 hits in August. Betts also hit his 37th and 38th home runs last night. The Dodgers get another shot at the Braves tonight. Francis Tiafoe, the only black American male left in the U.S. Open, knocked off Sebastian Offner of Austria in straight sets. Tiafoe, ranked 10th in the world, moves into the 3rd round. He takes on Adrian Manarino of France today at 11 a.m. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
The other talk stations? All day, all night, all white. At KBLA Talk 1580, we sound like the city looks. Now celebrating 2 years of amplifying black and progressive voices. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
Allocution of Dr. Mark Ridley Thomas, voiced by Ben Guillory. Good morning, Your Honor. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to address the court. I've had a full and intense 20 months to reflect on the circumstance in which I find myself. It is true that I have chosen to exercise my constitutional rights as a citizen to offer the best possible defense for myself. But I feel that it's important, Your Honor, to make clear to you that I in no way want to convey anything but respect for you and for this court. Further, I want to assure you that when this is completed, I will accept the outcome of the judicial process and give full and respectful compliance in accordance with the law. Your Honor, I believe it's fair to say that this case exists somewhere between what is clearly legal conduct on one end and clearly illegal conduct on the other. In between, there is a line that distinguishes actions that are legal and actions that may be ill-advised but not illegal. While I definitely disagree as to whether I cross that line into illegal conduct, I acknowledge with clarity where I belong was at the end of the spectrum where there would be little, if any, question of even the appearance of unlawfulness. The very perception that I deviated from proper conduct in this matter is truly distressing as well as harmful, and I deeply regret it. My actions and the fallout from those actions have hurt my family, beginning with my wife of 44 years, who should never have had to go through an ordeal like this. I apologize to her with every breath and with my whole heart. And I apologize to my sons and daughter-in-law and grandchildren, as well as other family members whose lives have been disrupted and traumatically impacted. Additionally, the anguish that I feel causes me to say I'm sorry to all of my constituents, colleagues, and employees who have believed in me for so many years, but who may now have doubts. I sincerely apologize to them not only for playing a role in bringing about those doubts, but also for no longer being able to be there for them in service. I can only trust and believe that the future will afford me the opportunities to continue to find ways to serve them and their families, to remove doubt, and to restore faith. Your Honor, I give you and my former constituents and all those here today my pledge that I will find a way to continue to learn from this devastating experience, to emerge from it as a more conscientious person, and to go forward once this is behind us with humility, with renewed commitment to service, and with undaunted hope for a purposeful life dedicated to the communities who rightfully expect and deserve the very best of me. Your Honor, I thank you.
Find a righteous rage and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
We are, and today's edition of First Things First with me, Dominique DePrima, is brought to you by Wealth Management Financial Advisors. They have tax services, financial planning, and more. If you're a small business, they can help you. They know how to get you up to date and on time on your taxes. If you are a nonprofit, they can help you get in compliance. If you're an individual, they got you. WealthManagementLB.com is where you can find them. WealthManagementLB.com. So happy Friday, Labor Day weekend. I hope you have a great, great, great day and a great weekend. And I'm so happy to be in conversation with Dr. Veronica Carey, talking about her book, Frame Your Degree. And all the things we don't think about, right? The big thing is, can you get into college? But I always ask the question, can you stay into college? Can you finish? And I think for African American students in particular, that's a very relevant question, especially now with the anti-affirmative action, anti-Black and white extremist philosophy that has taken hold in our country. Sure, we could do a whole show on that just with your work as Assistant Dean for DEI and Chair of the Board of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion at Drexel University College. When you talk about these bricks, these burdens that students carry that can be obstacles, keeping them from succeeding, a lot of those are based on their experiences as students that are not part of the dominant group, right?
Yeah, that's a very good point, that they're literally all of these top 10 bullying pain points, Dominique, apply to every student, but some of them may be nestled in more in different communities more so than others. So that you can't say that only a certain group have accommodations or only a certain group are first generation. Actually, 35% of all incoming classes across the nation are first generation students. And people don't realize that's a pretty big number, but they're not all Black, they're not all Asian, they're not all white, they go across. So I think I really need to impress that even though I always say this book is for all students, mostly people think of all disenfranchised or marginalized or minoritized students first. They forget that I said all students, right? So they're all enduring something. They're all having to figure out a way to navigate these points. But you raised a good point, though. Some of those populations, like African American or Black, we need to be concerned about retention. So we're probably, getting those students to attend. We get them to apply. They start matriculating, and then we lose them. So why are we losing them? I did a presentation at the university, and we found out that most African American students we lose within the first 6 months. One of the reasons why we lose them, they may not see themselves on campus for why the affinity groups are so important, like having a Black student union or something such as that. Another reason why we lose them, this may sound odd, but food. Sometimes there's food available, and people are like, well, what is this? I'm not eating that. Or don't you have any of this? How come the food is so different here? And the third reason why we lose them is because no one listens to their pain points until they get home. And a Black mother is not going to send their child back on psychotropics to deal with school. She's going to say, you're not going back there again. So there's a whole formula for why we're not retaining students of color. And the research that I did was primarily on the African American group. So within the first 6 months, that means that, Dominique, they start in the fall and they're finished by Christmas. They're not going to go back by Christmas.
So, as parents, how do we prevent that? I know so many folks with kids in college whose children, Black children, are dealing with anxiety and depression in a debilitating sense, not something, that's manageable. And maybe it is the things that you've listed. I think the only one syndrome is really hard for a lot of kids. How do we help them?
I think the increased awareness. We should start in middle school to high school and make these top 10 pain points a part of the conversation. I had a conversation with family members that are age appropriate to this question, and I know for a fact that our family is very communicative. However, and even my own children's illustrations are older now, but my own children's illustrations are in this book. And it was shocking for family members to hear that my nieces and nephews, et cetera, are on this list, and they had a number of them from the list, right? Because he figured, we already talk every single day. There's no way that they're enduring anything, but they do. They just don't share it because they figure they need to learn how to manage it themselves. And instead, we need to say, these things don't have to be managed by you if we start you early enough. And that's why earlier in this conversation I shared, we have the ability to change the culture and climate if we begin this earlier. The title of the book is Frame Your Degree. And the purpose of that is as they navigate towards the end of the book, Dominique, I ask them, how do you see yourselves if I were to literally frame you? What are the words that you would put up in that frame while you put your face in the frame and kind of like, watermark yourself out, and you put these words in front of you? I would say I'm flexible, competent, confident, reliable, friendly, humorous. I even jokingly say tall, right? These are the things that I would put in my frame. And one of my chapters says, don't make me come off mute. Because if I'm in a meeting at a university level and someone says something to me that jeopardizes one of my framed words, well, now I have to come off mute. So these students need to realize if you don't know who you are, U.S. Supreme Court will try to tell you who you are, and then will try to treat you accordingly. If this U.S. Supreme Court decision had come out 4 months ago, Dominique, they would have been a chapter in this book. Because this affirmative action decision, the LGBTQIA Texas Supreme Court decisions, as well as the lack of the loan forbearance, these are all pain points that students are going to be dealing with from September 1st, which is today, forward.
Yeah, great point. And I know that, we think that pain builds character, and I know, we have a whole suck it up generation situation, but we also want our children to thrive and finish school. And we want to be able to thrive and finish school ourselves. So when you talk about talking about it, it could sound like all talk, no action. Why is talking about it so important?
Because the only way to purge, in order to purge, you have to expel, right? And people don't realize that even laughter is an expulsion. Like if I'm in a group and I'm teaching about this to my students and I say, everybody just start laughing. And they're like, what, Dr. Carey? But when you go, it's an expulsion, right? So you have to get it off your chest. And in this scenario, you have to get it off your shoulders. Otherwise, you're going to lay another brick on there. And then the next thing you know, you're going to be absent from class. You don't want to get out of bed. You don't want to go to the dining hall and eat. And then your mother's going to come visit you and say, who are you? I don't even know you right this second. What is happening for right now? These are all the things that can be so punitive for students that they just don't know how to get out of. But if we begin to dialogue about how to get out of them earlier, it won't be a case of I'm unfamiliar. It'll be a course of action that they now know when they have to engender it.
How do you get teenagers to talk? I got one at home, and I know lots and lots of my peers have teenagers, and they're not like, oh, great idea, Mom. Let's sit down and have a little psychological counseling session where I tell you my troubles.
That's exactly correct. That's exactly correct. People oftentimes wonder how I can get students, like when I do this conversation at churches. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be doing a 100-student event later on this afternoon, and I always ask them the same exact question. Take a look at these top 10 bullying pain points. And they all look at me like, okay, whatever, lady. And then I say, don't tell me which ones apply to you. Just tell me how many. And you would think that they would be like, whatever, And then you see them staring down the list, and then I say, okay, maybe I have them do it on something called Mentimeter, which is a format where they can just anonymously share responses. Or maybe it's something where they, I can get them to put it into a chat. But the idea being is I have yet to encounter a group for which a student says 0. And then I say to them, this is why I wrote the book, because you all are enduring this madness. You're not sharing about this madness, but don't worry, this book will speak for you. And not only that, this book will share with you how to speak for yourself. Like I get emotional about it at this point because I've seen it work. This is not just like hypothetical. When you can get a 15, 16, 17-year-old person who's never met you a day in their life to actually answer you like that because they're looking for help. They want you to tell them how to help them. But they don't know how to walk over to you and say, excuse me, I heard you're this dean over there. Can you tell me what to say when a faculty says, oh, you're not going to run into those kinds of clients when you get to work or those kinds of customers when you get to your business job? And you don't know how to say, who are you talking about? You talking about me? They don't know how to say that. They don't say anything. Or when students stare at them in class because maybe an illustration came up and they go, well, for black people, and then everyone turns to all the blacks in the class. There's a chapter in the book called 2 and 50. That is when a student will sit in a class and pray someone else walks in that looks like them or whatever the diversity parameter is, walks in behind them. I'm sure you and I have been in spaces, Dominique, where you're like, nobody else of color is about to join this, right? I sit on meetings all the time right. So I call that 2 and 50, right? There's 48 other people in that class who don't look like me. I'm at a predominantly white institution. Nobody is having a revelation that the majority students are white. But why is it that every time we talk about blacks, you got to stare me down? So now I feel othered throughout the day. And how many times do I need to feel othered to get out of this 2-hour class? You see, those are the climate and culture changes we can make when a student using their first 5 words raises their hand and says, can you all stop staring me down every time I mention black people? Which you would think that they wouldn't be able to do, but when you give them license to do it, they'll figure out their first 5 words. Like I said, it could be 4 words, it could be 14 words. Oh, they'll figure it out when you're inviting them to use them and encouraging them to use them. And the climate supports them using them. Right now, the climate doesn't even, if you think about the climate now, and you asked me earlier about the institutional responsibilities, and one of them is that educators. I have an educators chapter in this book because they don't even understand terms like intersections, Dominique. I was raised in a binary world, up, down, on, off, tall, short, right? I had to understand what it meant to not be in a binary world and how that impacts other people, right? So that educators have to stop, drop, and address that this is a new student pool we have never seen before. So our curriculum, our syllabi, all have to change. And that's when students will feel seen and heard.
Yeah, I think it is definitely a new student pool. And, how your example, I think, is a good one on the one hand. On the other hand, I'm thinking, well, yeah, most teenagers are more likely to talk to a stranger than their actual parent.
True.
Are you one of these? I've talked to a number of people with backgrounds in psychiatry, and they often say you have to keep trying, even though they act like they don't want you to.
There's a sense of relief if parents know that if they're not going to be able to get at that something, that there's a resource in the community that will. Right now, there is that resource in the community that will, so therefore parents feel obligated to try to do all things. It's impossible to be all things to all people. Even though we love our children, we understand, we love our children literally to death, but it's impossible to be all things to all people. You will always run into someone. I mean, for example, my children, my daughter and my son, they had very prescriptive food likes and dislikes. I would make something, I want to eat that. And then they come back over the house a week later. Oh, I like how Miss Ann makes the up. I'm like, excuse me? Right? So it's like, oh, well, then go over to Miss Ann and eat the rice. So it's like you're never, ever going to see all things,
right?
But if the culture of education says, don't worry, we got you. If they're not coming home and telling you that the pain points that they're enduring throughout the day, we're going to be examining that as they're going to be matriculating through school. And if we can get them early and often, like Florida, if we can get them early and often, then by the time they get to that autonomous role as a college student, it'll be inherent in their student, sort of their persona, and they'll expect it because so will the person sitting next to them. That's why this book should be in the hands of all first-year college students.
We're talking with Dr. Veronica. Carey will get her perspective on, how you can help yourself, help your student. Her final thoughts for us today before we go to the best of Tavis Smiley when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here with a quick recap from my time at JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. There were speakers Ian Dunlap, Damon John, Lynn Richardson, MC Light, Don Kennedy, to name a few. Take a listen to what Justin Grant, Community Development Lead at Chase's Advancing Black Pathway, let's see what he had to say.
So I'm Justin Grant. I lead Community Development and National Partnerships for JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Pathway strategy. And so we're focused on strengthening the economic foundation of black communities, and we're making targeted investments in programs like the Advancing Black Wealth Tour to help us get our tools and resources out to the community to drive sustained impact over time.
So when it comes to black and brown people, it sounds like Chase is making it their personal responsibility, not only to facilitate these events, but to educate and provide resources. So, Mr. Grant, I have to ask, what does wealth building look like like for the individual?
It's home ownership. It's having that freedom to be able to start your own business and create jobs in your community. And it's having that long-term plan towards retirement, having that vision for what you want your life to be, and you have the resources to actually live it.
I'm Aisha Cairo. Thanks for sticking around. That was my recap from Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. First stop was here in LA, and they're taking it national.
If this were a Reese's TV ad, you'd be staring at a Reese's peanut butter cup. And sure, my voice is peanut buttery smooth, but still, you need to see the peanut butter cups, right? No? I can really just say Reese's and you'll go get some? Okay, Reese's. 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 Really working, actually. Reese's. Reese's. I'm on to something. Reese's. Reese's. Reese's.
Dominique DePrima here. Having a good credit score is one critical step to obtain a loan to buy a home. But did you know that your credit score is just one factor in getting a mortgage loan? Think about this. Lenders also consider your income, your employment history, current monthly debts, the size of the loan, and the amount of your down payment. Whatever your financial goals, U.S. Bank Access Commitment Initiatives support you in reaching them. Access your personal financial goals at usbank.com/access. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Mom's early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
And when I left the oven on, we decided together that it was time to see a doctor and make a plan.
Early detection gave us more time to seek out information and support as a family.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together. For more information, visit alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DePrima on First Things First.
And we encourage you to hook up with us, join with us on social media, KBLA 1580, on all platforms. Let's talk during the Labor Day weekend. Hope you have a great one. We've been in conversation with Dr. Veronica Carey for the hour. Her book is Frame Your Degree. Tell us how to get the book, keep track of you, and what you want to leave us with this morning.
All right. Thank you so much for that opportunity. You know, there is a website and an email. So it's very simple in terms of frameyourdegree.org. On there, you can see the TED Talk, and you can also learn more about the book. This book is an Amazon bestseller in 6 categories, so thank you, Jesus. It just came out June 14th, and you can go to Amazon and order the book. For any entities that are interested in bulk orders, there's a bulk order link on the website as well. If you want to communicate with me about anything we've talked about today, challenge me on anything we spoke about today, get further clarification, frameyourdegree@gmail.com.
Okay. And, you know, for those of us who are the parents of students entering college or in college, or those of us who are actually students, what do you want to impress on us this morning?
All right. What I want to leave you with is don't believe the hype of the first year myth. Again, this is one of the chapters in the book. Think about when children or students are determining where they want to go to college. They sit in front of their laptops. Maybe they have their parental entities nearby, looking over their shoulder. And what do they see? They see this great quad. Oh, the grass is so green. And they see, you know, all the students in their backpacks. They all look amazing. And nobody says on that screen how to navigate that credit card that has your name on there for the first time. No one tells you how to navigate when you have a possibility of going to a party on Thursday night, but you have class Friday morning. That first year myth will eat you alive. So it's very important to recognize that not everything you see on the screen is how your life is going to be when you arrive. But since I know that ahead of time, I wrote this book to prepare you so you'll be successful. I want you to be successful when I'm not around.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, it's true. We take care of them on the one hand. On the other hand, we want them to figure stuff out by themselves. And maybe we're not picking the right times to guide and the right times to back off.
Exactly. And sometimes we back off because we want the, age appropriately so, but sometimes that check-in still has to happen. The questions can't be so poignant. I know that one of the best conversations I ever had with my children was when I was driving the car because I'm not staring them down. I'm driving, they're behind me, and they felt more comfortable with that little bit of a seat distance, to tell me how basketball practice was or tell me how Girl Scouts went, right? Because I'm not staring them in their face and saying, how was your day? And tell me what happened, So those kind of distancing moments really do help, So if you start texting your child more so than calling them or on campus, as opposed to putting them on FaceTime and making them say to you, I had a horrible day, you might text them and say, Mommy and Daddy love you. We're just thinking about you. Why are you on my mind today? And maybe they might say something like, oh, Mom, I had a horrible class. One of the great examples in the book that some of the readers bring up to me is my own daughter's experience. My daughter literally called me, so shout out to Kristen. My daughter literally called me every day of college, undergrad. If that's what it took for her to matriculate from beginning to end, I picked up the phone every day. But the comical one was when she called me one day. She said, hi, Mom. I said, hi, sweetie. How are you? She goes, Mom, I don't have time to talk right now. I'm walking into class. I thought, well, what'd you call me for? But whatever she's about to walk into, she needed to hear my voice before she entered. You see?
Yeah.
My son, on the other hand, I used to joke and say, I'm going to turn that boy's phone off because he never responds to me. So each child needs something different to be successful. And if we really stop and think about what they're giving us, they're telling us every single day. And to this day, my daughter and I still talk. It could be a mother-daughter thing, or it could be her personality. It could be whatever it is. But each child is different. And those intersections make them special, unique, and they also have different reasons to mitigate things so they can matriculate and they can graduate.
Well, Dr. Veronica Carey, thank you for your advice and your insight, and it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it immensely.
FrameYourDegree.org, or look for it on Amazon. The book is called Frame Your Degree. The Best of Tavis Smiley is up next, like what we do around here every single Friday. I'm Dominique DePrima. Like I said, play with me on socials. If you miss me, find me at KBLA 1580 or DePrima Radio. History is now, and we are making it together. Until next time, have a great weekend. One love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information